If you're enjoying these live chats, our main channel has even more World Cup videos looking at the greatest performances, the quirkiest stats, and the epic tales of World Cup cricket. Morning everyone, and welcome again to another edition of the Scorecard. I remain Jared Kimber, and today we saw runs. Lots and lots of runs, sloggy, sweepy, slicey runs, all the different kinds of runs. It felt like the World Cup that we'd been waiting for quite some time in England and in Australia, England and Australia, and now in India, where bowlers have been on top, and then suddenly some runs. England finally won a game in a World Cup after a tie and then a loss to New Zealand in their last two games. I'm going to let that one sit for you for a moment. Bangladesh have no answers for a team that they actually played pretty well when they played them at home not that long ago. Pakistan get home in a huge chase with Babar providing very little in terms of runs. And Sri Lanka continue to bat better than anyone would ever hope while losing matches. Anyway, let's check the tape and see what we have today. We'll start with Bangladesh, England. And we'll start with the man at the top, in fact, the man who made the runs. Dawid Malan. So he has a reputation of not being an explosive batter early on in his innings. Well earned, I might add. But against Bangladesh, he certainly started very, very quickly in this particular one. Whether he can quite go to the Jason Roy level, that's, I think, a fair debate to be had for another day. But there's no doubt that, this was a very, very fast start, the sort that they used to get when they had Roy as well. His 50 came off 39 balls, while Bairstow's came off 54, for instance. And it's not the first time we've seen him start quickly. He did that against New Zealand as well in one or two of the games in that series before they came over. And the other great thing about having Malan opening the batting for England is that he has a very, very good conversion rate. So now, outside of Joe Root, they have someone else who can bat a very, very long time, which is very, it's an important thing. In his last 5 innings, Malan has scored 4 scores over 50 now, and he converted 2 of those into hundreds as well. And he now has the highest score in Dharamshala as well. So he went past Kohli's 127. It's a fun fact. Just wanted to get to him a little bit. I think for a long time, I've been saying that his best format is one-day cricket. And I base this a lot on having seen him, since 2007, 2008. For whatever reason, I've seen him in person and on TV a lot for, in first-class cricket and list A cricket and everything else, T20 cricket. And when he got picked for Test cricket, I was like, I don't think this guy's a Test player. When he got picked for T20, obviously completely overperformed his T20 numbers for England, but even the England team didn't seem to really want him around all that much and weren't sure what to do with him. One-day cricket for me just looks like his most natural format. He's got that skill that I think the best one-day players have, which is that ability to score 40 or 50 runs at, strike rate of anywhere between 70 and 90 without really exerting himself or taking that many risks. Just that sort of consistent, unlockable, level that we see from players like Bevan and, Shai Hope and all those sorts of guys. Malan is on that level. And, so I think from that point of view that he's just a really, really good player from that for England. Having said that, I don't think England were ever wrong to pick Roy or Hales. Roy obviously had a really good career and Hales played for a little while. They were trying to, at that stage, find someone who was part of their new game plan. And at that stage, Malan wasn't as good a player as he is now. Although I would say that in one-day cricket, he's been pretty good, list A cricket anyway. He's been pretty good for a very long period of time. And it wasn't just that him on his own, of course, today. It was Roots, who's now made runs in a couple of games. And England just scored a lot quicker in that middle section than they have been for a little while now. That middle order of Root, Morgan, and Stokes, I talk about it all the time, but that was a huge part in why they won that previous World Cup. And they don't have that anymore. So Malan opening and going deeper into innings actually probably gives them, a little bit of an extra boost from that kind of a thing. So it's not quite the middle order machine, but it was still middle overs machine. It's a very good scoring rate for middle overs, this. And if you have a look at the best middle over batters, and this is from between the two World Cups, uh, you could see that a major reason England, oh sorry, you can see that Milan, even though he's opening, has the ability to obviously bat at number 3 and bat longer through the innings, and so he can. It provides England with the opportunity to be only one wicket down throughout the majority of that middle overs, which the only time that happened before was when Bairstow or Roy, really kicked on. But more often than not, England would lose a couple of wickets, which meant that middle bit was more important, that 4 and 5 position. Whereas the way that they're going with David Milan actually allows for that top order to do some of that heavy lifting, which is more a traditional way. That's how most teams actually score a lot of runs in ODI cricket. But just have a look at where Milan is here. It is absolutely next level. The amount of runs he has been averaging when batting from overs 10 to 40 in one-day internationals is just absolutely ridiculous there. But yeah, he did very well, and England obviously scored massively in this game. There was one interesting thing, though, that we spotted. In the 40th over, England were 296 for 2. And I remember, because I think that was around the time the other game might have been starting, or the preview to the other game. So I assumed at that stage England were going to make a score of, what, 400? 450, perhaps, if they really kicked on and things went completely crazy, which we know they're, available to do. But that wasn't what happened, right? And, Sharaf Islam bowled a really good knuckleball. And, that I think that was the one that got Butler, wasn't it? And then Joe Root top edge another slow ball not that long afterwards. Then there was an off cutter that bowled Liam Livingstone. So we know that these sorts of things do happen with England. So, from here to here, they're going to be expecting something up in this region. But we also know, because they push so much harder than other teams, there is the odd occasion where it's going to end up over here. However, if you're scoring 350, 370, 380, those sorts of scores, they're already, because they've scored so quickly, specifically from this wicket through to here, that actually means that they're in a situation that even when they fail, they're usually failing from a fairly high bar. So it's not the same as a normal team. If you think of a normal team scoring, let's say, a rate of around where Bangladesh is here, if they lose a bunch of wickets at the end, that really affects them in a different way than it does for England. So it is part of what England do and part of where they've had their success. And obviously today, way too many runs for Bangladesh there. And just want to have a look at the bowlers. So Shakib didn't take any wickets today. And so from that point of view, a little bit of a letdown for him. However, it is worth looking at the economy rates. He sticks out a little bit in this, doesn't he? And, there's some good bowlers here. Mahdi Hassan is obviously a really good bowler. The other Mahdi Hassan took wickets today. Taskin and Mustafiz, very, very good bowlers. So it's so noticeable just how low Shakib actually is here. So great effort from him there, certainly. But didn't get the wickets, and I suppose that's what they needed earlier to slow them down. England took a selection. In fact, there's 2 really interesting selection decisions. We'll get to the other one in the Pakistan game shortly, but a couple of very interesting ones. Tim Wigmore wrote a piece about how Moeen Ali is more than his record in ODI cricket, what he allows for England to do. And I think that is correct, because Moeen Ali can bat a little bit, and they feel comfortable enough with him batting at, number 5, or even being a pinch hitter higher up than that. They know he's not going to take a lot of wickets, but they also know that he can bowl, and he's confident enough and experienced enough in those situations to be able to play, that it gives them a flexibility in their selections that is huge. He's also, in this squad, their second best spinner, right? However, they went with Reece Topley today. And I think what they're trying to weigh up, and we saw them do this in the last World Cup, and they ended up in the last World Cup with more frontline bowlers and less all-rounders. And they would prefer to try and make this work with their all-rounders, because they want that long batting lineup, which allows them, I'm not saying that because they had one less batter today, they collapsed, but it's a part of it, right? It is how these things sometimes work. Reece Topley just makes their bowling a lot better. And, specifically, they want a long batting lineup, but they also need to be able to take wickets at the top. So those two things, one of it is going to have to give, right? They have to make a decision in which direction they went. And clearly in this one, they went at Topley's first spell. They went for Topley and he had that first spell. And, if you have Topley and Wokes, you can't overcome what Jofra Archer is, of course, but it does mean that suddenly they do have a much stronger new ball partnership available to them. And, it was more, I think they win that game even without that, but they would have given Bangladesh much more of a sniff at that not being the case. And Bangladesh's innings obviously fizzled off a little bit from there. But at that point, I think it's very fair to say that I think it's very fair to say at that point that they were the best. What's the best way of putting it? That they made their decision and it worked for this game. But within this game, you can see that Moeen Ali not being in the batting also had an impact. So I don't think there's any team in this World Cup outside of perhaps India that doesn't have to make a decision like that at a certain point. Sri Lanka, for instance, having to cobble together their fifth bowling options again today. Anyway, that's the end of that game. Bangladesh, very disappointed with themselves, I think. They fought back with the ball at a stage where most teams don't fight back with the ball very well against England, and then completely gave it away when they went out to open the batting. So very disappointing for them from that perspective. All right. And let's have a look at Pakistan, Sri Lanka. And this one, I'll just pause this. Oh, Muku's already all over it. This one, it is, of course, look at that freeze frame. But let's just have a look at this again.
Special somebody find the sniper, please. Taking him out from long range. Wait for it. Oh, there you go, son. Oh, dear, oh, dear. He's still going. Yeah. Get him in the movies, please.
I couldn't put his right leg down before he got those cramps.
So, this was one of the biggest chases in World Cup history. The biggest chase in World Cup history. It was Pakistan's, I think, was it the second highest chase ever. They made 200s for the first time ever in a World Cup match. But let's be honest, the highlight is going to be Rizwan being shot by the sniper, as Dooley pointed out there. Very important to note this. Cramp is not a funny thing when it happens to you. But it is a very hilarious thing when it happens to anyone else, especially when they're in the middle of batting. One thing I would note is I saw some people taking it very seriously on Twitter and social media in general. People saying things like, oh, Rizwan's put his full body on the line and, he's playing under pain and everything else. As a fellow cramper, it hurts a lot when it's happening. But as long as you're not cramping consistently, you can play on. He would have probably twitching in certain parts of his muscle, and he would certainly have the fear that it's about to come back. I think that's the worst part of cramping, of course, is always that fear. But from the idea that he played through some incredible pain, he didn't. It's still a good effort to be able to go on, but it's not like Elise Perry and a broken leg, right? Like, it's a lot further down the chain than that. And one other thing I liked about his batting was the way that, they lost. I mean, it was an incredible innings that he played in many different ways. It was a very big chase. They lost Baba to the, nick down the leg side. So a little bit unfortunate from that point of view. But Rizwan was really smart the way he played, especially the way that he attacked Sri Lanka's fifth bowler weakness and also went after some of the younger players. With two senior bowlers out, they didn't have that experience available to them. And you can see here from Estelle's tweet just how young Sri Lanka is at the moment. It's an incredibly young lineup. And so, with that in mind, they probably needed that one senior pro to come in and help them a little bit more. But well done to Rizwan on what was a funny and hilarious innings. And don't you want both? Can I do the balloons for him? Is my computer still doing that weird thing? There's the balloons. So the other thing that this is the important thing from this game, actually. I'm going to change myself a little bit here. Something was very crazy about this game. this Pakistan-Sri Lanka game, because so many batters in this game did things they don't normally do. Rizwan's Kram is obviously, front and center for that one. But this is Kusal Mendes so far in all these yellow dots are all the innings where he's ever passed 30 in a one-day international. Right. This score here is the innings against South Africa at the start of this World Cup, where we all went, whoa, what's happening with Kusal Mendes? This is a bit crazy. And this one is today. He's never done anything like this before. I mean, look how far these two, there's like one other dot up here that's anywhere near anything else. This is what Kusal Mendes is like. This weird World Cupness. Now, there are caveats, of course, that these pitches are, incredibly flat that he has played on. The two that he has played on been very flat. But he started going to, he's become a berserko guy when he used to be like a warm milk and blanket kind of fella, right? It's incredible how different this is. And there's so many things that I found today. So I wanted to look at the lines and lengths that the seamers are bowling to him and how he is striking off each line and length. So you can see here, this is his normal stuff. So we know he's a little guy. And he likes to play the cut shot. So he'll make cut shots from balls that probably even aren't always this short. But he'll give himself that room, play this cut shot, and he's quite good. But you can see from everything else, he doesn't have a very dominant, line or length against seam bowling. This is him in the World Cup. Small sample size is king. Although Kusal himself is a little king. But look at the strike rates on some of these areas. Like this, it's usually 54, and he's up at 200, right? It's incredible how much quicker he is scoring in every single different way. And you might see someone scoring quicker in one particular area. So let's say he's decided that anything wide is going to go up to like a strike rate of 300, anything short. But it's right across the board. It's full, it's straight, it's outside of stump, absolutely everything that it needs to be. And it's just, this is not something that you normally see. This is like a John Woo movie where, they have changed taken the face off and put it onto someone else's, like the movie Face Off by John Woo. Just in case the other one was a little bit confusing, but that's how we show it to cricketers. Well, that's how I show it to cricketers the other way. I don't always put the funny face on the top, although the funny face can work sometimes. But you can just see just how much he has improved his strike rate right across the board. It's a incredible pattern. And I don't think I've ever, if he was having a dream of how well his World Cup would go so far, I'm not sure it would be this optimistic, right? And he's a career slow grinding, what did I call him before? Blanket in a milk kind of guy. And, at the moment he's got whipped cream on his nipples and he's running around naked on the streets at 2 a.m. in the morning. Just a huge, huge change. And so we've talked about two batters who've been a little bit, oh no, actually, I just wanted to show this. This is the thing I did want to show. So when the ball's been going short, so originally I thought it might be a length thing and he was attacking certain lengths. So you could see here, going after the short ball, and I could show you the same sorts of things from the South Africa game. But again, that was a full ball. Yes. And there's a few more full balls here where he's whipping. This is a dangerous shot. He's just whipping it across. So he has got one particular shot that he's doing. But again, that was a full ball, probably a slower one outside off stump. Really good. So a lot of this is hooking, pulling, cutting. And then he's got this flick shot across the line, which reminds me a little bit of the way that Colin Munro used to score in T20 cricket. But on top of that, he's still hitting the other balls away. So it is possible that what he is trying to do is cash in on every single short ball that he gets. And to be fair, he's a little man, right? He's going to get more short balls than other people. Might have been something he's been working on. For the length balls, whether they're straight or even a little bit outside off stump, what he's decided to do is play that big shot across the line. But he's still attacking the other balls. That's the bit that is a little bit more confusing to me. But he wasn't doing this a couple of weeks ago, and suddenly it's all he's doing. Now for my third. Is this the third guy? Yeah, now for my third weird batter from this game. This is Samara Wickrama, who, coming into this World Cup, we were all worried about Sri Lankan batting. Suddenly, Sri Lankan batters are going absolutely ballistic everywhere. And Mendes we knew a lot more about. So I can go through Mendes's game and I can show you that previous data, and you can make your own minds up. Samuel Wikrama is someone that we don't know as much about at the international level. He made his debut in 2017, but this was only his 42nd or 43rd international, and he hasn't really impressed all that much today. For instance, this was only his second 100 for Sri Lanka. And you look at his domestic numbers here, and you can see that despite getting picked early, this is list A in T20. Despite getting picked early, he really hadn't actually played a lot of list A cricket when he first got picked for Sri Lanka. And then you can see a middling sort of record all the way through. T20 cricket, he's got a low strike rate. His average is fine over the last 5 years. But again, considering his strike rate, not anything that special. And list A, he's got this big boost at the moment. But up until recently, he's been a moderate player. There's nothing really within his record that should suggest that we're going to see what we saw today and that kind of innings. The one massive caveat, I think I want to mention it briefly with Mendes' one before, is that these two guys have played on incredibly flat pitches so far. They have had the two best batting pitches of the tournament. And sadly for them, they haven't had the seamers, that their main frontline bowlers available to them to really help them, but their batters have stood up massively. Good batting pitches, fine, but they've still stood up. And unfortunately, without the bowling frontline bowlers there, they haven't been able to do it. But as our Stell's tweet showed earlier, it's a good young team. It'd be really interesting where to go. Shall we look at our final weird batting thing from this one? So Pakistan drop Fakhar Zaman. And stick with me for a moment, because when you hear this out loud, your first thought is going to be that this sounds weird. But the dropping of Fakhar Zaman is a bad selection decision. I'm not saying specifically leaving him out was a bad selection decision. But what I'm saying is one game into a World Cup, if you have decided that this player is going to be your opening batter for a World Cup, it is way too soon to move on from him. He either should have been dropped beforehand, giving another player a chance to actually come in, or they should have said, you're an experienced player, you average mid-40s in one-day cricket, we're going to give you a couple more chances to get your spot. Because what I'm saying when I say it's a bad selection decision, I very rarely mean a selection decision is bad from a they should have picked this guy, they should have picked that guy situation. What I'm usually saying when I say bad selection decision is that they have picked someone and within one game completely changed their plans. That means their original decision was bad, or this decision is bad, right? That's the way that these sorts of things work. And it's incredible to think with Fakhar that this is a guy who made 300s in this year. Yeah, it is in this year. Just wanted to make sure. 300s in this year. And yet, look at this. This is Danny Dyer down here, right? I mean, how you go from that? This tells you about the natural variation in, we talked about this with KL Rahul, and we've talked about it with a lot of players. If you go through a peak like this, chances are you're going to go through a trough like this. And if you see before in his career, it's a lot more consistent. A little bit of failing in a row, but then a couple of good innings in a row, right? And that came on the back of a couple of good innings. These patterns are real. This is more what you expect. But this pattern here and this pattern here also happen. And we have to not overreact. I would say if Fakhar Zaman, unless there's a technical issue, and if there's a technical issue that they know about, then he shouldn't have been playing in the first game. But unless it's a technical issue, he would probably have made runs here. Why am I telling you all this? Because none of this mattered, because the person that they replaced him with was absolutely remarkable. This is Abdullah Shafiq's career ODI runs. I think I've got this one, right? 80 runs in his career, and 100 today. I thought he was magnificent. He hit the ball very hard, but in a very controlled way. He's got a composure to the way he goes about it. Rizwan ends up being the hero, partly because he's not out and was there at the end. But Shafiq was a huge part of this game, right? Really, really good innings. Really impressed with the way he went about it. Only Pakistan could make a selection decision this idiotic, and it's ended up with their greatest World Cup chase from a guy who's never done anything even remotely like this before. So well done to him. Really interested in watching him bat going ahead. A lot of people were saying to me also that, Saud Shakil should come into the lineup ahead of Rizwan. I wonder if Abdullah and Saud on either side of Rizwan might actually be an interesting partnership partnership. Interesting formation, I should say, between all those players. But very well batted to both of those guys. If you're in the chat, and I see a lot of you in here at the moment, so thank you very much. Remember, super chats, if you definitely want your question answered, but any normal chat questions, we're still getting started. We had that terrible run yesterday where I don't even know if the episode went online. Just maybe the most frustrated that we've been making one of these lives, so it didn't work at all. We hope we fixed all the problems now and everything's working very, very well. Tell your friends, comment, even comment helps us, everything. Like the video, subscribe, all those sorts of things. So if you do want to put some comments in, I will get to them in a moment. But I just want to talk about, Sri Lanka's kind of out of the tournament. So there's just a couple of things that I wanted to talk about with Pakistan. I think this was quite early on. I know I took the, not going to help, is it? Try and bring that back up so we can actually look at it. I found this early on, but I think it certainly wasn't towards the end of the inning. So many slot balls. Right, and if you go back and have a look at the footage, which I already have, of Shaheen bowling, when he comes on for his second spell, he's bowling these floaty 85-mile-an-hour balls outside off stump into hitting zones. It was really, really poor. Someone, I think on one of the earlier shows, asked me if Shaheen, can be as much of a threat when he comes back on, because he seems to have slowed down his bowling a little bit. He can still be a threat, and he's still an interesting bowler, the angle that he produces, the skills that he has. But not if he's bowling half volleys outside off stump around the wicket. It was a really bad look. The other thing that you'd see is how many of the short balls that they bowled were very wide. Some of these are from Afridi, but even so, you could see the way that Mendes was batting. He was able to, because of where this lot is, so many of the balls were in here. Now, he's a good cutter already and tiny man, right? So all he needs to do is stay a little bit leg side of the ball and bend his knees, and balls in here, he can cut all day long. And, I showed you the highlight before. He did cut quite a lot of them. The other problem is that the Pakistani seamers need to be on top of their game. They need to be in a situation where they are taking regular wickets, but also putting pressure back on. I don't think they did that enough today. I think they were very, very disappointing. It was a good batting wicket, and you miss your lengths. These ones are fine. They were going for short balls. They missed their width on some of these balls, but they missed their lengths, but they did miss them a lot. They're going to have to get better because the spinners aren't up to it. And I can prove to you 100% that the spinners aren't up to it by going to our next bet, which is on Shadab's bowling. And after that, we'll finish up. So any comments or questions that you have in the comments, please put them in now. But this is something I noticed in Shadab's bowling today. So I've put this together. This is a pre-planned package. Oh, this has sound, and I've just realized that the sound may not play. So Muku might just have to bring the sound across because I've already recorded it, and he might have to insert it, and we'll play it into the show. But essentially, I was watching Shadab really closely over those first couple of games, and what I've seen so far is really, really troubling. I hadn't seen as much of him in other times, when he's been struggling with his form. And so who'd they play first? Netherlands. The Netherlands game, I did more of a deep dive into his bowling in that situation. And now I'm in a situation where I went through every ball he bowled in this innings. Don't worry, I won't make you watch all of them. But to tell a bit of a story, I'll just take a quick ad break just because I think we're having problems with the audio. And then after the ad break, I'll show you the Shadab bowling. Have you ever wondered how I watch so much cricket? I use VPNs to log into accounts from all around the world. But because before, even simple things like when something exciting would happen in a match, I would rush over to social media, and when I got there, the clips would say something along the lines of, "This video is not available in your area." In fact, most of the coolest cricket stuff in the world at the moment is geo-blocked because some random board didn't sign a deal where you happen to live. If you're a hardcore cricket nerd, the only way is to have a VPN, and we suggest Surfshark. They will give you the speed of your favorite quick bowler. They're as inventive as a T20 batter after a bunch of dot balls, and they're as secure as a specialist wicketkeeper with the softest hands in the world. And guess what? The kind folks at Surfshark are going to give you a deal. Enter the promo code Kimber for an extra 3 months free at surfshark.deals/Kimber. There are probably other things that Surfshark can help you with, like data and identity theft and traceability and intrusive advertising. But for us, it is our best weapon against the evil cricket geoblock. Go to Surfshark and type my name in, KIMBER, and get 3 months free today. Frantic calls between me and Muku to work out this video, but here it is. Shadab bowling. As I said, it's something that I really noticed when I did my tier rankings for the spinners coming in the numbers, but now I've put it to tape as well. So have a look at this. This is in no way good. It is the opposite of good. Actually, what I want to do is focus on a couple of balls from his first over. This one gets slapped away with a slog sweep. It's not a hard spun leggy, and it's in his first over, so he's pushing the ball through a little bit, and this happens. So the next ball, he decides to go wider, a little bit shorter, and he rips it. It's a beautiful delivery, but it is a little wide. And why is it out here? To stop it from going over there. From here on in, Shadab Khan bowls a lot wider, and he doesn't attack the stumps much. And if it looks like he's worried about the slog sweep, he is, but it's not quite what you would expect. I think the issue is that Shadab has lost the ability to land his hard spun leg spinner on the length he wants. You can see this from some of the front-on shots that he's dragging it down. He can't control his length when he's bowling. And that is what you're seeing right now. Short ball after short ball after short ball. And eventually, there's a few full tosses as well. And if he bowls short and wide, he has two fielders on the ring on the offside who can try and stop the ball. And also, it's much harder for anyone to hit him for a six. So I think he is choosing to bowl this line and length because he thinks the damage won't be as bad. He would probably love to bowl his leggies a bit fuller and straighter, but if he gets his lengths wrong, he'll get pulled. Because I think when he does bowl straight, he often pushes the ball a lot more, which means there isn't a lot of bounce or dip, so any batter with a slog sweep can just take him across the line and hit him for six. In all, I counted 14 short balls and 3 full tosses, but to be fair, he did eventually get his man from a short ball. All right. Yeah, so I don't think that's something he's going to be able to fix in the tournament, which goes back to what we said originally in our preview shows about the seamers are going to have to stand up massively for them, which is why I pointed out that the lengths that they got slightly wrong again today. It's a concern, I think, for Pakistan going ahead, but they won, and they've won 2 games. So, yay that. But they haven't been tested yet. They'll certainly be tested a lot more against India, but India might be tested a lot more against Pakistan as well. So that's the end of the first part of the show. I'm just going to put up just a quick ad for you so I can just get some more comments out of the room. And then I will be back to talk about them. And one other thing I want to say, there's another show scheduled. It's actually scheduled for half an hour, but there's no way I'm going to be able to do that because I'm still doing this one. But in about an hour and a half time, we'll be doing the wagon wheel tonight. So if you want to come back for that live, feel free to do so as long as I've eaten in between. But you're watching Scoreboard with Jared Kimber, and here's a word from our sponsors. Love sports and want to write or podcast on it? Look no further than Fans with Laptops. It's a specialized course tailored for aspiring sports enthusiasts like you. Uncover the secrets of the press box, learn how to create compelling stories from scratch, and discover the best methods to share your content online. If you like these live chats, head over to our main channel where we have all sorts of video on this World Cup. There'll be several every week with all the latest trends, stories, and incredible historical content. All right, welcome back. Scoreboard with Jared Kimber. All Things Cinema says, do you think Sri Lanka has the least potent attack in this World Cup without Hasaranga and Chamira? Oh, least potent? I think it would be a harsh call to say that based on what we've seen so far, just because they've been on 2 of the best batting pitches, maybe the 2 best batting pitches in the tournament so far. So if you're saying that, are you factoring in that their bowlers are, Hasaranga and Chamira and Tikshana in the first one, might still have gone for runs. Maybe not as many. Obviously, that's a very fair thing to say. But would we might still be going, oh, their bowling isn't very good, and we think their bowling is very good. Whereas actually what we're saying at the moment is that they've been on 2 incredible batting pitches, and their opposition have batted really, really well. Sadly, slightly better than them in both times. Music says, hey, mate, how can Sri Lanka fix these loopholes with the options they have on the bench? They can't be this bad. Well, I think so let's say if you took Bumrah and Kuldeep out of India, they wouldn't be as good. If you took Stark and Zampa out of Australia, and if you took Rabada and Maharaj out of, do you know what I mean? You take very good players, especially bowlers, out of lineups, it's a little bit harder to replace, right? England have still been the most dominant team since 2015 in white ball cricket. But without Jofra, they found it a lot harder, I think, of recent times to be that same side because you can't really replace them. So any team who loses that, and they're already a flawed team. I think a lot of people had they've got 2 work experience kids in this attack at the moment. Wellalage and Patharana, both incredibly talented. But I think Russell Arnold said it on the broadcast that we want them to be ready for the next World Cup. And instead, they're having to do heavy lifting in this World Cup and on tough pitches. So, yeah, you're going to be in a situation like that. What's the average age of this team? It must be 8 years younger than, maybe 7 years younger than England. It's a very young team, and it's playing like that. But they're actually playing good cricket. That's not the right button. That was the right button for the last bit. Sukant says, I thought Sri Lanka was a bowling team. Were they always 2 injured players away from not being able to defend 350? That goes back to the question that All Things Cinema asked Sukant, which is South Africa's a bowling team and Pakistan's a bowling team. They both got met on this pitch as well. Right, there's a lot of runs that came through this pitch, and they have, Pakistan's 1 player down on their bowling attack, but South Africa weren't short a bowler at all. They made a decision not to have Shamsi, which may have affected that game, but they still had, their first choice available to them, and they went for runs. I think that tells you a lot about this. But let's just go into the bowling options that they have. They were missing their finger spinner, who could bowl anywhere from overs 1 to 45 in the first game. They're missing their wrist spinner, who is a proven wicket taker, and their fastest bowler, who is probably their most suited to flat pitches, who is also a proven wicket taker. There just aren't teams that can replace things like that. I think you have to be aware of those sorts of things. But also, 2 other good bowling teams went on those same pitches. We get so hooked up into the result that sometimes we forget to look at the individual parts of it. Osama says, do you think Haris Rauf is overrated? I think Haris Rauf is what he is. He's a old-fashioned strike bowler, ODI strike bowler, who probably doesn't have a lot to his game if he loses 5 kilometers an hour, but with that extra 5 kilometers an hour can do magical things. He takes wickets in clusters. There aren't many players like him in the world. So I don't know. I don't feel like he's massively rated, considering there aren't that many other strike bowlers in ODI cricket. I don't think he's massively rated from that perspective. He would have to be, I can't remember if I went through, but he'd have to be one of the best. He might be the best strike bowler in the middle overs in ODI cricket. Might have been on one of the other shows. And he wouldn't be far away from being one of the best death strike bowlers. That's pretty good. I would like to be those things. Kush says, is express pace the answer on flat batting wickets, be it Harris or Wood? They getting hit left, right, and center. Is it? There's no answer on a flat batting pitch. It's funny. So many of these questions that you put in so far, and they're really good questions, but they're following a similar theme, and you're all discounting the most obvious thing that has happened in that some of these wickets are just really, really good for batting, and you can throw Shane Warne and Murali and Glenn McGrath and Joel Garner out there. They're going to go for more runs than they normally do on these wickets. That's how it goes. The there's no right answer to your question. Is express pace the answer for flat batting pitches? And the reason there's no right answer for that is not all flat batting pitches are identical. But the reason that Pakistan and Australia, I think, have had more fast bowlers than other places around the world, forget genetics, forget, culture and everything else. A big part of it is that those are very, very flat wicket countries. And so you need to do something slightly different in order to survive as a bowler. And so on flat wicket countries, you would expect to have more fast bowlers. So yes, in some ways it is the answer, but you still need to put the ball in the right area. You still need to put pressure on the right way. The fast bowler still needs to bowl correctly. And some wickets probably don't go that way. Sometimes on a flat batting pitch, what you want is someone bowling knuckleballs or back of the hand slower balls or cutters or being smart with their fields or anything else, because there isn't a one answer to, how do you put out a fire? Well, there are many different ways of putting out a fire, right? And there are many different kinds of fires that you need to use the right method. And sometimes that happens on these sorts of surfaces. David says, which is real England? Getting pumped by New Zealand today or versus Bangladesh? Well, I think the truth is that both of these, it's a flawed team. I don't think it's as whole as we saw in the last World Cup. So I did a piece, David, I think when they lost to New Zealand, about how they're different than the last time. And they're also not as, I wouldn't expect them to be as consistent as they were in 2019, in part because in 2019, they'd all played so much ODI cricket and they don't do that anymore. So you should see a bit bigger fluctuation in their results. I think that's very, very fair and it makes sense. And I've got no issue with that at all because, well, do I have an issue with that? I kind of have an issue with that, David. They've caused this by not playing enough one-day cricket. And they did that to try and win T20 World Cups, and they won a T20 World Cup. But Butler has come out, and Butler, Roy were the two, I think, most vocal of going, how do you expect us to be good at this thing we don't do anymore? So I think with that, you should expect more variability within their results. And when I said they're both, I think they have the ability to play a bad game like they did against New Zealand, but I also think they have the ability. Their two main strengths work today: batting in the middle overs, and bowling with the new ball. If they have more games than not where those two things work, they have a very good chance of winning this tournament. But I would also say that Moeen Ali already not being in their side is an issue for them when they play the better teams and when there isn't that sort of scoreboard pressure available to them, especially if this does become a spin bowling World Cup, which today was a bit of a throwback to the batters, but it looks like all things considered, it's going to be pretty friendly for the spinners all the way through. Kush says, is this an opening batters World Cup? Most of them scoring centuries. I think we've had quite a few centuries from down the order, actually, Kush. All World Cups are opening batting World Cups, as in that's where you get the majority of your runs. Your leading run scorers throughout the history of World Cups is openers, right? And it's the same with T20 cricket and bilateral ODIs and everything else. You bat at the top, you get more of a chance. The field's up, all those sorts of advantages. We saw a number 4 make 100. Two number 4s make 100 today. Yeah. We saw Aiden Markram. Have we seen a number 5 make 100 yet? Other than Markram? Where did Markram bat? It was 4 or 5. I think it was 5, wasn't it? So, no, he would have been 4, wouldn't he? So we've seen quite a few number 4s make runs as well. It shouldn't be an openers World Cup any more than any other World Cup, just because that Kookaburra ball is moving around a little bit. But some of these pitches might negate that as well. But generally, if you have a good batting pitch, the guys at the top are going to be the ones who are going to capitalize on that first. All right, I'm going to take another quick break. And then after the break, we will come back with the last question. So if you have any more questions, as I said, like, subscribe, tell your friends, share, do all those things. But after the break, we will come back and I'll do the last couple of, I can't find the ad I wanted to play. We'll find the last couple of questions and we'll go through them. And then, as I said, I'll be back in about an hour's time. You can't actually get rid of me. I'm always here.
I know that you think you could run your favourite cricket team better than those who do, but no one is going to let you do that. So why not try Wicket Cricket Manager to satisfy that urge? Pick your nation, pick your league, pick your players, and yell at them when they do poorly. You can find it in the links below or by searching for Wicket Cricket Manager in your app store today.
Step into the World of Cricket podcast with me at the Jared Kimber Podcast Network. Be part of our live recordings or listen to insightful conversations 4 times a week. Wagon Wheel, Uncovered, Footmarks, and Red Inker. These shows cover kind of everything across the game. If you like what we do on this channel, you're probably going to enjoy the podcasts we do as well. Support us on Patreon and help us keep making our content. Join for exclusive perks like the AMAs, the live calls, and to chat with me directly on Discord. You can also enjoy ad-free content, early podcasts, and access to my emailer. Step up your cricket style game with Bodyline t-shirts. Explore their exclusive player-themed t-shirts, including favorites like Virat Kohli, Kane Williamson, and Ben Stokes. They also have team-inspired designs and options for hardcore cricket nerds. Their collection offers something unique for every fan. All right, Shrikant says, what are your thoughts on Gill potentially missing out on the whole tournament? I mean, it would be horrendous. Also, you know, it's dengue fever, isn't it? It's yucky to begin with. He's a great player. This is probably going to be his, I don't want to say coming out tournament because I think we all know he's good, but this was, you know, planting the superstar flag, right? Of if he scores 450, 550 in this tournament, we think about him differently from that point onwards, most probably. So it's very sad that he's not playing. From an Indian team perspective, which might be how you're asking and not asking about his personal well-being, what do I think about it from an Indian team perspective? He is... I don't think his amount of runs is replaceable. Some of his impact is replaceable. But there's not like a Shubman Gill. Jaiswal is a very, very talented player, and they might bring in someone else, Shikhar Dhawan, come back or someone like that. But no one else has the ability to score or to run a ball with an average of 70. Right? Like, he's irreplaceable from that point of view. I don't think that means that that's the end of India's hopes in the tournament, of course, because they're just too well-rounded a team. They got too much depth, but they're not the same team without Shubman Gill as they are with him. Gautam says, is throwing Patharana in the deep end hurting his development? I actually think that he's been developed quite poorly so far, in that teams have got him to do what he does really well, and they haven't developed him into the fully rounded bowler that he has to be. I think in this tournament, I think we saw in the Asia Cup that he was starting to develop that way. And I think in this tournament, they wanted that to happen again. But now he's having to do things that he hasn't always had to do. Look, it's the Glenn McGrath thing, right? You know, Australia turn up in the West Indies in 1995 and all their bowlers get injured. And they throw the ball to this young kid and he steps up. Sometimes it works, and then you get plenty of other occasions. Simon Kerrigan, where it goes the other way around, although that was a end of a test. But you know what I mean? There are plenty of other people who've been thrown in when they're not quite ready, and it has ruined their careers. He's in a middle ground. I don't think you would say that he's still in development as a bowler, but he's a very talented player in many different ways. So look, I understand the question, but it could go both ways, and I don't think we'll know for a little while. Keshav says, is this the highest ceiling limit to Kusal Mendes? Well, I'd hate to see what he can do beyond this. What's he going to do? Make 200 with a strike rate of 180? The thing with Mendes is, you talk to anyone in Sri Lankan cricket, especially Mahela and Kumar, they thought this was going to be the guy, and it hasn't happened, right? And he is just starting to get to a point where, not that the team was going to look to move on, because I think his cricket had improved at times, but he's getting to a point now where he's in his prime. This has to happen now. How he wasn't in his prime a couple of weeks ago and is suddenly in his prime, I don't understand. But from an age perspective, he's coming into his best. The next 4 years should be the best years of Kusal Mendes. If he does anything better than this, it'll be remarkable. And I can't explain what has happened, because there should have been signs earlier in that this was happening. It could just be that he's seen really good batting wickets and just like, I'm seeing the ball well, I'm going to go for it. Sometimes that happens. But if he does better than this, it would be outstanding. Gautam says, Fiver against Netherlands aside, how do you rate Santner so far? Well, I can't take that aside because that was one of the 2 games. Will we see Ish Sodhi if he keeps playing like this? So I had a whole thing on Santner prepared for yesterday, and of course, StreamYard ate it. It's in the emailer I didn't think he bowled that well yesterday. And I hate saying that when someone takes a 5-wicket haul, and especially because I was lower on him coming into this tournament than other people were. But he looked really frustrated to me. Even when he got his wickets, he looked frustrated. I still think he did the things he does well. But at one stage, he was going at 7 runs and over, and I don't think there was any reason on that surface for him to be going at those kinds of figures. I know he fought back really well from there, and obviously, sides through the tail. I thought he bowled very well in the first game, though. The first game, I had no concerns at all. Thought that was a really positive sign. Second one, not as much. Ish Sodhi, I think they'll play an extra spinner, because they don't really rate Glenn Phillips' bowling, right? And Ratchet and Ravindra won't always be successful. I think when they get the wickets that are ragging, they might try Ish Sodhi, but we might only see him for 1 or 2 games. Don't think we'll see him. Don't think he'll be consistent all the way through the tournament. And the final one from Zaid. Should Rizwan have batted at 3 and Bubba at 4, considering how he struggled in the power play lately? No. Unless you think, again, this goes back to the Fakhar Zaman question. If you think it's a technical issue that he's failing in the power play, then yes. But if you think he's just gone out early a couple of times because that's what happens sometimes, then no. Also, because Fakhar was failing so often, Bubba was probably in earlier, so that also plays a part. And he got caught down the leg side today. That wasn't like I'm in the power play situation. It's just, he nicked it. Sometimes those things happen to those sorts of balls. Thank you all for coming on to Scoreboard. Please go and if you're not already subscribed, please subscribe. Press the bell icon, all these things. We'll be here for every day of the World Cup. We were even here yesterday when it wasn't working. That's how every day of the World Cup we will be. We'll be back, of course, again tomorrow with another live show. But in 1 hour and 15 minutes time, I'll be back for Wagon Wheel, which is a completely different kind of show. People will be asking questions, not just about this World Cup, about everything. If you want to come back and do that, you can. And I would very much like everyone on this chat to come in. We have a really good video on KRL the other day. There'll be another video in the morning. I'm running out of time to make it, but there will be another video in the morning, which is a little bit about what changes could be made to one-day cricket. We've done similar things with Test cricket before. Might have even done one on T20 cricket. It's really fascinating how you could change the different formats. But thank you for coming on to the Scoreboard. I'm Jared Kimber. I'll see you again tomorrow. Calling all sports nerds. If you dream of a career within sports, consider joining my course, Fans with Laptops. It looks at features, pods, video essays, and kind of everything else I've ever made, plus a lot of content sharing techniques. It is my brain and career exposed for your benefit. Fans with Laptops will